So the summer's starting to really take shape now, you feel, for West Ham. We've got some really good news today, actually. Some pretty well, two bits of very good news and one bit of not so good. But the first bit of good news, of course, is Luis Guilherme has now been confirmed as a West Ham player. He's now signed the contract, 5-year deal. We understand to be, I think it's 23 million plus 7 on that in add-ons, so £30 million in total. It's a big signing this for West Ham. It's seen as a hell of a coup for Tim Steidten, especially considering the fact he's been working on this since January. That's when we first reported it. That's when he'd been out there, as I sort of said before. I think he's been there about 4 times now, Brazil. I know he's obviously seen other players. But this is one that was sort of one of the top players that he wanted to bring in. So it's great that that's now finally done. It's been very interesting to see how we shape up actually next season. I'm going to talk about the other bit of good news in a minute. The negative news is Alexis Garcia. That was a player that we were very keen on to bring in, but it looks like he's going to Bayer Leverkusen. That was always likely to be his destination, considering the fact what they could offer him, of course, Champions League football, etc., and playing for a side like Leverkusen that have done so well. So it was always going to be a bit of a challenge trying to get him to come and play for West Ham. Of course, we've got no European football next season, so I did say that earlier when I was doing videos this season that we really did need Europe if we wanted to get these sort of top players to come to the club. But that's not to say we can't do well, but yeah, it doesn't help, does it? But so Garcia's not going to happen. I think he's going to be confirmed as a Leverkusen player pretty soon, actually. So that one's dead. But really bit of good news, actually, is Ben Johnson. For me, anyway. I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I think there's a few fans that probably will agree. Some that might have sort of said they're not that keen, but I'm really happy with this. So we've been told that Ben Johnson's been offered a 5-year contract and he's really close to signing it. He's been speaking to Lopetegui, who's made it very clear to Johnson, not only does he want him to stay at the club, but he sees him as actually a first choice right back for next season. He thinks that he can take that role. Ben Johnson, of course, has been heavily linked with Crystal Palace. I think that was his sort of most likely destination. Rangers, of course, were in the mix as well, but I think Palace were the most likely, considering the fact it's London, Premier League, the wages they could offer, etc. I think that's where he was most likely to end up. And to be honest with you, I was resigned to him going. I don't know about yourselves, but I really felt that it was gone. You know what I mean? How many times have we offered a deal to Johnson? So I think that just shows you actually the lure of Lopetegui. I think he's got that's immediately a big tick for me. For him, I mean, the fact he's managed to get a player that was certain to be leaving and change his mind the way he has, and I'm proper delighted about it. I mean, obviously he hasn't signed the deal just yet, so I'm not going to get too carried away, but it does look as though that he's about to sign this contract. So Ben Johnson at the moment is likely to be remaining at West Ham. I'm thrilled. He's a West Ham boy coming from our academy. He's been at the club, I think, since 8 years old. Versatile. There's not many players like that. There's not many players that can play the level that he can play at, and play at right back, left back, centre back, midfield. I mean, there's a lot of roles he can play in. But as I said, the interesting part is that Lopetegui actually sees him as a first team player for next season, thinks that he could take that right back position and make it his own. So I'm really pleased. I really just hope now that we can get this over the line. So the update from ex-WHU employee on Patreon was that the deal is actually getting very close. As I say, it looks like it's going to be a 5-year deal for Johnson. And also as well, it reminds me, I know it's not the same category exactly in terms of levels, all right, but you remember when obviously, well, I don't know if you do remember, it wasn't mentioned much in the news, but Declan Rice left. But what I was always thinking, if Declan Rice, let's say, just decided to stay for one more season, if he just said, look, I'm going to sign a deal, but I'm going to do one more year at West Ham, then I'll move on to Arsenal or wherever, right? He'd have gone down as a bit of a legend, because I think he'd have gone down more of a legend because the fans would have really taken to him more. The fact he decided to commit his future a bit longer term. And in fact, I can imagine if Ben Johnson does sign this, which he does, as I say, it does look like it's going to happen. That's going to really cement himself in with the fans. I think they'll just do no harm at all in sort of showing that real loyalty for him, a player that obviously loves the club and wants to stay. I'm really pleased. And as I say, the big positive for that surrounding that as well is the Lopetegui effect, and how him and Steidten have managed to sway the player who was so set on leaving. You know, he wanted to play first team football. He felt that his chances had been limited. I think he'd become frustrated under David Moyes, like many players had. I know I've mentioned David Moyes again. I've been told I've got to stop doing it, but I can't help it. You know what I mean? It's just what can I do? Not mention him, but. No, I think that the fact that now we've managed to get that player to change his mind, I think is fantastic, and it's a big commitment from him. I don't know a lot on the salary yet. I haven't heard exactly what it is, but I know that he was looking at around about 45-50 grand a week. So I'm guessing we must be there or thereabouts if he's tempted to sign it. But the fact he's managed to convince the player and say that he's now going to be part of his plans for next season, I think is fantastic. And of course, the good news or the big news is going to be today. Of course, it's going to be dominating. Is that Guilherme is going to be confirmed as a West Ham player. I'm not sure exactly when the club are going to officially announce it. They may have done by the time this video goes out, to be honest, but he signed it. He's now officially a West Ham player. He signed a 5-year contract with the club. It's massive. I mean, this is a real good step in the right direction for this club. We've got a lot to be excited about, and we understand that there's going to be at least another 6 players coming through the door. So yeah, that's exciting times coming your eyes.